Hi guys, welcome to Coachbook 31 lesson. We are going to talk about measuring and drawing angles today. And I'm going to do my best to show you how to do this without you guys actually having protractors. Before we get into the Coachbook, I wanted to just do a review and kind of make sure we were clear on a couple things. So, when you have angles, an angle is made up of two rays, right? And the ray has an endpoint, and then when it goes this way, it's extending on and on and on forever. So when those two rays meet at a common endpoint, they form an angle. Where they meet at this endpoint is called the vertex. So when we're measuring angles, we are measuring basically the degrees from here to here. So there are three types of angles, and it's really important that you understand this, and I loved getting all those pictures of you guys making angles with your arms. They were awesome. So a right angle is 90 degrees, and that's when it forms an L shape, right? A square corner. So right angle is 90 degrees. An acute angle, and you can think about it because it's so cute because it's small, is when it's smaller than 90 degrees. All right, so if this in here is smaller than this opening here, we call it an acute angle. Then we have an obtuse angle. You can think about obtuse, it's huge, it's bigger than 90 degrees. So when the opening is wider than 90 degrees, we call it obtuse. The reason that it is important that you know this is because I have a protractor here. If you look, there are two sets of numbers. See these big numbers on the outside, and there's the little numbers on the inside. When you go to use your protractor, you are going to have to decide which numbers you're using. So, for example, I don't know if you guys can see this really well, and I'm going to show you again in your Coachbook. But what you do is, to use the protractor, you line up your vertex in this little hole right here and make sure that this line is straight, like this. Then you can look and you can read what number. So this is 90 degrees because a right angle is always 90 degrees. So I know you can't see it super well, but this line right here where it's crossing is at the 90. Now, when you go to look at an angle that's not a right angle, so let's look at this acute angle. So I'm going to take this hole right here, I'm going to line it up with the vertex and make a straight line right here. And then I've got to see where this is hitting on my protractor. Now, it's hitting right in between 140 and 150 between the big numbers. So that would be 145. But I now can see that this is an acute angle, so I know that I'm not going to use that number because it has to be smaller than 90 degrees. So I'm going to look my small numbers right here. I'll show you guys. So the ray was hitting right here in between there. So what I now know is that this is a 35 degree angle because I'm going to use these numbers down here because I know it's acute. Just like if I were to do the same thing for the obtuse angle, I line up the hole with the vertex and one of the rays along there, and it's hitting the big number where that other ray is hitting is at the 70, but 70 degrees is smaller than 90. So I know this isn't a 70 degree angle, it's a 110 degree angle. So knowing if it's acute or obtuse is how you are going to decide which set of numbers you're using to measure it. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, I'm about to show you closer in your Coachbook, and then you're actually going to get to do an activity today on Math Playground for your assignment where you get to manipulate a protractor. And if you happen to have a protractor at your house, feel free to use that and practice with it. And this is Catman. Say hi, Catman. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get your Coachbook out. Yeah, you get your Coachbook too, and I will let you know what page to turn to. Thanks. Okay, guys, we are in your Coachbook now. We are on page 291, so you can follow along. Measuring and drawing angles. So, I just showed you a protractor, but let's read. They say a protractor is a tool used to measure and draw angles. So there's a full circle protractor, which I didn't show you. And it has all 360 degrees of that circle. A half circle protractor, which is what I was using in the lesson, is 180 degrees, right? Because 180 is half of 360. So we're just cutting this in half like that. You can use either one of these to draw or measure angles. And like we said, the half circle protractor goes from 0 to 180. And this is where, remember when I was showing you, you have these two sets of numbers. So you've got this set right here, and then you've got the set of numbers on top of that. And then just to review, and let's go ahead and draw a picture of this down here so you have it. The vertex of an angle is where the two sides or rays meet, right? That's their common endpoint. And then the protractor measures the number of degrees between the two rays. So I want everybody to just draw in their book so you have it. You can draw any size angle you want. I'm going to do one like this. And then we're just going to label it. So this we know is our ray. And then this common endpoint right here, we call our vertex. And then this is what we're measuring, right? That's what we're measuring right there. So if you need to pause this video to get this picture in your book, that's totally fine. But this way you have just a visual for the rest of the lesson. All right, so if you flip the page, okay, it says, example 1, what is the measure of the angle? All right, so they're asking us to use a protractor to measure it. So the first thing you can do is they're lining up one of the rays right here at the 0, and they've got the vertex right there. All right, and then now this other angle is what's going to give us our measure. So we look across here, and if you can see where it's crossing in your book, it's crossing. So this is either a 50-degree angle or a 130-degree angle. But we know because of how big this is that it is an obtuse angle, right? So the angle is going to have to be greater than 90 because it's bigger than the right angle is. So we know this is 130 degrees, right? So the measure of the angle is 130. Okay, for example 2, right here, they're asking us to draw an angle that measures 75 degrees. We can go ahead and just stop right now and think, okay, 75 degrees is smaller than 90, so we know this is going to be an acute angle. All right? So what they do is they drew one ray to start with, because that's what you're going to do. You've got to draw one ray to start with. Then you do what we did before, and you line up that endpoint right there, and so your ray's at 0. And then you want to find 75 on the protractor, but remember there's going to be two 75s. And so you are trying to find the one that is going to make an acute angle. right? So if you look down here, it's this one. So between 70 and 80, and they made a little mark like that on the 75. And then you can actually pick up the protractor, and I'll show you with mine. Once you have that line, you can line it up and draw just like that. So you're making a 75-degree angle. So, and that they did it for you right there, just like that. All right, so for your coached example now, everyone needs to be open to this page. They are asking us to draw a 140-degree angle, and we're going to stop right now and say 140 degrees is bigger than 90, so we know our angle is going to have to be obtuse. It's going to be a wide open angle. We actually get to use this protractor in your book to do this. So, first we need to fill in our first blank. The first step, remember, is to draw one ray of the angle. So, draw one ray of the angle. So, you can go ahead and do that, and remember, we're going to start at the 0. So, we put our endpoint in there. And we are going to draw one ray of the angle just like that. And we know that we have to line up the endpoint with the 0 degrees. Right? It's got to hit it at 0 degrees on the protractor. Then we have to find 140, because that is what they're asking us to do, is to draw a 140-degree angle. We know that the angle is greater than 90. So we are going to use the 140 mark. Let's look and see. So we've got 140 here, and we've also got one here. If we use that one, we are going to make an acute angle. So we know we cannot use that one. We are going to use this one, right? The one on the inner part of the scale. So we're going to write on the inner scale. And the only reason we know which one to use is because we know that this is an obtuse angle and it needs to be wider than 90. So we're going to mark a point at 140 degrees right here, and then draw a line to connect the endpoint of the first ray. So, if whatever straight edge you have, you can use the edge of a book, whatever's nearby. If you don't have a protractor or a ruler, but you're just going to line it up. So you've got that here, and line it up with this, and then you can just draw your other ray just like that. And now we have drawn a 140-degree angle. If you have any questions, please message me. There is a link in your lesson plans for the activity that I want you to do, and there's another video on my channel showing you how to do that activity. So if you guys would go and do that now. If you have a protractor at home, if you have access to a printer, you can print one out and cut one out. That's how I made my big one. You can do some of this for extra practice, but it's not required because we don't have protractors. So follow that link. Let me know if you have questions. I hope this was helpful. Thanks.